What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Ango, and in today's video we got some massive stuff to talk about. Yes, it's official, an AEW star is gone, and yes, we got to talk about some crazy stories floating around. So as always, if you want more videos like this, go ahead and click that subscribe button and ring that bell. This way you get notified every time a new video drops. I want to talk about this really quick. Brock Lesnar almost went to TNA, and I thought this was a very interesting story. Kurt Angle was talking about this on the latest episode of the Kurt Angle Show, and I really just felt like this story needs to come to life because there's always been rumors surrounded whether or not Brock Lesnar would go to TNA. Now, this was back in like 2007 roughly, and Kurt Angle said that Brock Lesnar had actually called him at one point. Keep in mind, at that time, he wasn't in WWE, and he said, hey, man, like, can you get me in TNA? And basically, Brock Lesnar asked him what type of money Kurt Angle was getting paid. Kurt Angle gave him a number, and Brock Lesnar said, like, hey, if you can get me that number, like, I'm there. And essentially what ended up happening was financially, TNA just couldn't make it happen, which made a lot of sense. Kurt Angle was getting paid a lot. Sting was getting paid a lot. A lot of talent were getting paid a lot. And when it came to the budget and the financing and everything in that company, I mean, they were pretty much reaching their maximum point, so they couldn't necessarily afford to bring in Brock Lesnar. Now, this is a very interesting story to me because this could have very well changed the landscape, not only for TNA and Brock Lesnar and their personal careers and their business, but also it could have potentially changed a lot for Brock Lesnar because Brock Lesnar eventually came back to WWE. We saw how that went down. And I think this is a really, really interesting thing when you think of TNA's business. Now, granted, Impact Wrestling still exists, but it's under new management, new leadership, new ownership. There's a lot of new faces running Impact Wrestling. When you look at TNA, though, we saw kind of the downfall of it between financial issues and just obviously creative issues. Things went downhill for that company. I imagine if you bring in Brock Lesnar, that could have very well changed TNA. But also at the same time, too, if they were already struggling financially, then of course it just wouldn't have made sense. But I am very curious to see, or I would have been very curious to see how Brock Lesnar would have been booked in TNA and whether or not TNA would have done good by Brock Lesnar in terms of booking. You know, I always go back to 2008 being a really good time period for Impact and their show and their creative. But as time went on, things obviously fell apart. This is very interesting hearing Kurt Angle talk about it. If you guys haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. It's a very good story. Guys, Dustin Rhodes from AEW has announced at Blizzard Brawl that 2023 will be his last year wrestling. So this AEW star is planning to call it quits after 2023. Obviously, he's had a tremendous career. He's had a great career in AEW as well. He's been very instrumental in a backstage capacity. And then obviously he's had quite a few banger matches in this company. So Dustin Rhodes has put a timeline to it. He says 2023 will be the end of it all. And I don't know exactly what his plans are going to be with AEW going forward. I think AEW, you know, especially because Dustin Rhodes is helping out a lot with the women's division, I think AEW just needs to take advantage and keep that advantage of having him there. Because truth be told, you know, you want these veterans backstage, you know, and we'll kind of talk about it in our final story of today's video, but there is this belief that there are a lot of things wrong with the backstage environment with AEW. And of course, these are reports and rumors and things that are talked about on the internet. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're true. But if there is an issue backstage with leadership, having a veteran like Dustin Rhodes, maybe excelling to the point where he is given an additional role, could be very helpful to the company's growth. And, you know, like I said, I think Dustin Rhodes has had some really good matches in this company. They've given him that freedom. I don't think this is something that WWE would have ever done with him. So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like, you know, I get it. Maybe Dustin Rhodes is not going to be getting the world championship or taking it off of MJF anytime soon. Maybe he's not going to be put in these really, really big storylines. He's obviously there to help the other people and the younger talent, which is super respectful, super commendable. But it would be really interesting to see how he ends his year. Because if 2023 is his last year wrestling, I think with AEW and Tony Khan specifically, they have been very respectful to give people their flowers while they're alive, giving people their moments, giving them the things that, you know, many other companies wouldn't typically do. And I would like to see what AEW does for Dustin Rhodes. Obviously, his contributions to the company have been great and positive, and a lot of people say good things about him. So who knows? Maybe, maybe a chance to hold a championship belt, maybe a TNT championship belt or All Atlantic championship. I wouldn't be upset if they gave him a short-lived title reign, but that way he can also put somebody else over, and then, of course, he can retire and then go into a backstage role. And I'll just say it to kind of throw it out there. Cody's in WWE. Is there the opportunity for Dustin Rhodes to ever go to WWE and work backstage in NXT? Obviously, we saw what Dusty Rhodes had done. So, maybe Dustin Rhodes follows suit. And for our final story of the day, guys, huge update. William Regal is officially gone from AEW. I've obviously been providing a lot of updates as they come. Fightful Select has confirmed that the rumors are true. William Regal is out. He is headed out of the company. Now the rumors are even pouring in more than ever that William Regal is expected to go to WWE and start around the new year. So William Regal leaving AEW is not necessarily a shocker after all of these rumors. I think there's been a lot of confusion in regards to his contract status. Is Tony Khan and AEW letting him out early? If that is the case, good on Tony Khan and AEW doing that. There has been a lot of talk here about William Regal. There's been some rumors floating around on the internet that he wasn't happy since day one. I don't want to buy too much into those rumors, especially in a situation like this, because I feel like William Regal has been done very well since going to AEW as an on-screen character, and I've been very adamant about that. I feel like AEW did something very cool with William Regal and the Blackpool Combat Club. So I'm glad that they did that. And honestly, I see a lot of negativity towards the way Regal was booked at Full Gear helping MJF. But I think AEW was very logical in that sense of how they did it, especially if AEW knew that William Regal was leaving. This idea that William Regal will turn on Blackpool Combat Club, sort of, and then help MJF, only for MJF to turn on William Regal and write him off TV, I think that's a masterpiece. I think that's great booking. I think that does sell the idea that MJF is truly a heel, and that was what I was expecting. And I like that they went about that. So I do see a lot of negativity towards that. Why would you have him create such a big spot? And maybe there's more to it. Why would you do that if you know he's leaving? One, there's a chance maybe they didn't know, maybe they did know. But regardless if they knew or didn't know, it still helped make their world champion over as a heel, which he was already over, but people were thinking he was going to be a babyface. And then the idea of MJF writing him off TV. I personally just think that was really, really strong booking by AEW. So, I don't know what WWE's plan would be. Is he going to be an on-screen figure, whatever it may be? There is this belief that Triple H really wants him backstage. I really just want to see him go back to NXT. And I want to see them do this NXT global thing, and I want to see them really develop talent and really get NXT to the point where maybe it's just a little bit less cheesy. I know they have a plan to bring in indie wrestlers and stuff like that. That's been talked about. So if all of these things are happening, you got to have William Regal at the forefront. He knows what to do. He's worked with Triple H. He's worked with the WWE. And I'm excited. And I also want to throw it out there. Charlie Dempsey in NXT is fantastic. He is obviously the son of William Regal. I would love to see them put him on the main roster. And if you want to put William Regal as an on-screen character, I thought he did so phenomenal in AEW. I would love to see it in WWE. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below.